Hi, rock climbing in the Philippines here, and it's really hot. So if I'm starting to look a little bit like a greasy spot, you know, I'm real sorry about that. I can't help it. I can't run the fan because it makes too much noise. There's no aircon in this room. I have the window open, and somebody's burning some plastic out there. It's disgusting. It smells awful. But anyway, please bear with me. Now, today we're going to tackle a tricky subject, which is, does sexual behavior in the Philippines actually create baklas? Okay? Before we get there, I'm going to ask you, please contribute something, just a little bit. I've started a membership on this channel. You can just put a little bit in there. You'll get extra videos, you'll get extra articles, you'll get stuff. It'll be worth it. And then if you contribute, you're helping to produce all this wonderful content. And you really should owe it to yourself to do this. Anyway, I'll put up the addresses of places where you can help us, and please do so. Okay, we've discussed at length over the years kabaklan, which is the life of baklas in the Philippines. Now, bakla is a word from Luzon, which is the Northern Ireland of the Philippines, and actually this comes from a particular area of that. There are actually 179 recognized languages in the Philippines. It's an absolute linguist's dream, this place. You know, linguists come here and are just amazed. But that does mean that there are quite a few different words for the same thing. You know, you've got bakla, bading, beki, bayot, loads of them, and they all mean the same thing. To the baklas themselves, they would call themselves, they would be quite sure that they were, and I quote, women inside. And they express this by saying that they have green blood, or berding dugo. That's the Filipino, the Tagalog term for green blood. Green blood is the universally accepted identifier between baklas. Right? All baklas have green blood, and if you have green blood, you are a bakla. That's it. So the question then arises, which is, how do you get it? I mean, it doesn't seem particularly simple. Well, if you understand Ray Blanchard's work, then you know that there are two completely separate types. That's two different pathways. One comes from the desire for men, the understanding that you want men. Right? You're a sexual invert. You want a big, hunky, hairy guy to do you all night long. That's what you want, and you want that from a very young age. Your crushes as a child will be on men like that, school teachers, that sort of thing. The neighbours around the barangay that you live in, that sort of thing. Older men, nearly always older men. And as you grow up, this will become defined as you reach around about 11 to 14. And remember, the Asians tend to be a little bit later in their puberty than Caucasians. Then you may well, if you're really in the strong boat, if you like, you're going to start wanting to take hormones, and you will take birth control pills, which are probably being bought for you by your mother, or maybe your aunt. It won't be your sister, because girls in the Philippines are not meant to be having sex, right? So they will not be buying contraceptive pills, because then people will think, oh, she's having sex. What's that when she's having sex? So it'll be an older woman who's on your side, perhaps an older bakla. That's very common. And she'll be buying the hormones, the strips of contraceptives, and you'll start taking them. When you get a little bit older, or even around about then, you will actively pursue men. And it's not at all uncommon here to hear of baklas who became sexually active very young indeed. And this is with local men. This is not, don't worry about it. This has got nothing to do with foreigners. This is a local thing. This is a Filipino thing. And it's replicated across Southeast Asia, that they begin to have sexual relationships very early on. really, even in their preteen years, with local willies, local men, older boys and men. Now, when you get a bit older, because here you have mandatory full-time education till the age of 16, I think it is. It depends on your grade level that you've achieved. Then you're probably going to, at that point, you're going to grow your hair, and you will either continue your hormone regime that you've got, or you'll get a more sophisticated one, more in line with modern Western practice. And all of these things are available. And you'll dress in a feminine manner, you'll look like a woman, and you'll behave like a woman, and you will pursue men. And that's your life. You're what is called a long hair bakla. Okay? And you get short hairs as well. They're no less feminine. I was asked this question. They're no less feminine, than long hairs. They're just less beautiful. That's all. And baklas, they like to be beautiful. The other way in, very similar to the other Western form, is they're autogynephilic. They're absolutely in love with the idea of being beautiful women. And yes, they are in love with themselves as beautiful women. But they have to be beautiful. It's really an important part of this. And as a result of that, they will become what's called pseudo-bisexual. Nearly all baklas in the Philippines have relationships with men. Or if they don't, they will make a show of desiring it. If you go to places where there isn't that much, if you like, same-sex or trans sex working in the Philippines, it's fairly low-key. But if you go to Thailand, obviously it's much more obvious. And if you go there, places like Walking Street, Nana Plaza, Phuket, you'll see lots of Amazonian, and I do mean Amazonian ladyboys, and some of them are bigger than I am, huge. And those are definitely autogynephilic. You get the HSTS as well. HSTS can sometimes be tall, but they're always very slight. It's just a thing. Tallness, yeah, you sometimes see some who are kind of, 5'9", 5'10", but you see a 5'10" AGP, and you're looking at a bruiser, They call those people because they don't appear in childhood. Unlike the other type, whom we call baklas, this type, whom we'll call late bloomers, appear usually around about 15 to 16. So this is years after the other type. I mean, the initial type, the batang bakla, will be dancing around with a t-shirt on her head to simulate hair, and possibly having arranged her t-shirt around her waist so that it looks like a skirt. And she'll have been doing that since she was 4 or 5. And nobody around these people has any doubt at all about where they're going. The other type, which in the West would be characterized as AGP, they're called late bloomers because they appear later. And that's absolutely in line with everything that Ray Blanchard said, that AGP appears, autogynephilia appears at puberty or after. And it actually seems that it is actually at puberty. And maybe people keep it secret for a long time, but it actually happens at puberty. So that could be as young as 9, even in the West. That's what the DSM says, and I tend to agree with it. You do find some late bloomers here who they bloomed actually surprisingly early for a late bloomer, if you know what I mean. However, there's something else that I think we need to look at and to consider, which is actually sexual practice in the Philippines. Now, I've spoken about this a little bit. I spoke earlier about virginity and how female virginity is a real thing in the Philippines. It's an important thing. Male virginity just isn't. It's not something that, well, if it can be said to exist at all, it doesn't exist in the same manner that female virginity does. And in fact, it really doesn't exist. There's no hymen. There's no hope of pregnancy. It's not, if it's a virginity at all, it's not the same kind of virginity. And because of that, because young females in the Philippines are really strongly protected against the advances of men, and this is across the whole of Southeast Asia and most of the world actually, you know, girls just can't go out and have sex. Trust me, they can't. Yes, lots of girls do end up being prostitutes, but you'll find that almost all of them are single mothers who've been abandoned, you know, by husbands who are basically indigent. Or there'll be a few who, you know, one night they got drunk and next day they woke up and the strips are blue, you know. This happens. It does happen. But nearly all of the women who are involved in sex work, certainly in the Philippines, that I've spoken to, and I've spoken to quite a few, they're mothers. They were mothers before they became sex workers, right? But either the father is present but just will not work, and these are called bystanders, or he's gone. He's found another chick and he's off. He's gone off with some other woman. A lot of men, you know, Filipino men are very strange. Most Filipino men are absolutely, you know, they're so invested in their kids, especially their boy kids, that it's, you know, it's amazing. It's actually quite lovely to see. Tend not to be quite so invested in their daughters. But some Filipino, and I think it's generally Southeast Asian men, can't stand kids. They don't want to be around them. So a kid arrives, he's gone. So what we're talking about is a situation where girls are really protected against the interests of men, but boys don't really have a thing called virginity to lose. And it's obvious that those who are batang baklas, those who have been crushing on men, you know, since they were yay high, by the time they get to 12-ish, you know, and they're able to, you know, have some independence from the home, yeah, there's a very good chance that they will end up down the woods with their pants down. Very good chance. And certainly I've talked to plenty of baklas, and this is a common start. The late bloomers, they might not, but they're going to be older, right? They come from a different angle, which we'll discuss. They come from this angle of the absolute desire for feminine beauty. And beauty is a big thing in Asian culture, and it's really a big thing. Filipinos, all Asians, love beauty like death, like life. You know, it's like they just love it. And to a boy who is not particularly masculine, and who doesn't really want to join that bandwagon, you know, the idea, well, you know, actually, I could be a beautiful woman. That can be pretty persuasive. You know, that can really be pretty persuasive. But getting back to this idea of sexual practice, I think there is a case to be made to say that this fact that boys, batang baklas, but also some younger late bloomers, will become the focus of the attention, basically, of randy males, because that's legitimate, that's okay. You know, age of consent laws in Southeast Asia are designed to protect girls. They don't really care about boys. It's not. This is not America, you know, with its ridiculous Puritan assumptions about sex. Basically, it shouldn't be happening anyway, and let's shut it down as much as we can. Here, sex is part of it's like the air. Everybody's having sex. You know, I mean, I've known people, men like me, go to visit their ladyboy girlfriend's family. In fact, I think there's even one on one of the YouTube videos with this clip. And the first thing the mother says is, how do you have sex? It's completely open. It's not, you know, that, yeah, okay, fine. The way that you have sex, all that stuff. But it's just so open. It's just like, yeah, well, you know, that's really interesting. You're great. You seem like a nice guy. I don't really understand how you have sex. You know? Or maybe she's just winding them up. But the fact is that they're open about it. It's like, yeah, let's make a joke about it. You know, we know fine what you're doing, but we want to hear you say it. Know what I mean? And most of the guys, you know, we get used to that kind of thing because, you know, we are regular arse bandits and we just don't care anymore. We've been doing it for so long, it's like, fuck it. Try shaming us. Just keep on trying shaming us. You're going to be like, you might as well try to shame the yard rooster. Really, it ain't going to work on us. We don't care. That's a word of warning to the blue stockings out there. So I do wonder if a way into another, way into bakla, kabaklan, is through this social and sexual practice. Now we know that a number of observers have pointed out that boys who are not particularly masculine in Thailand are sometimes taken by their mothers to the doctor, and the mother says, look, this is not a boy, this is a girl, can you do something about it? And that is an accepted route into the Thai equivalent of kabaklan, katoi. That happens. It definitely happens here. Little boys are quite good looking at, dressed up by their mums and put into beauty pageants because, hey, what's the harm? It's just a beauty pageant, it's just some kids having fun, It's also this business of sex. If you get that young person who's been crushing on men, well, she's going to seek to consummate that. But let's suppose you're just, you're kind of good looking boy and you caught the eye of some guy. And remember, this is a culture in which nobody cares, Doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. And supposing he seduces you, maybe gives you some money, it's quite possible. And you go up the woods and you get your pants down and he has you. And let's just assume that you like it, that you think, oh, that was bloody good. I mean, I can't tell you this, but I've certainly heard from people who said, that first time, just amazing, I wasn't going to give up after that, just wasn't going to stop. That was my thing. And so what's happened is that they suddenly discovered, at the age of maybe 13, 14, 15, something like that, this is how they like to have sex. They really like it. Now, where do they fall into this scheme? They're not batang baklas. They often weren't girly boys. Does being penetrated by a man like that make you autogynephilic? Or is it something else? Is there some other sort of social thing going on here that isn't really explained by the Western Blanchard model? I mean, it is explained fully in the West. It's maybe not so much here. Because, once you discover that you like it and that you satisfy yourself through that kind of sex, then you will continue. And then you're into kabaklan, because all the other people around you are going to say, you're a bakla, you've got green blood. You like it in the ass, so you're definitely got a bakla. So what do you do then? Well, I'll tell you what you do. You keep going up the woods. So at that point, I'm going to leave it and I'm going to make another one to fill in the rest of this little story, which will appear to my Patreons, because that's the way we work now.